Welcome to Decades of Horror, the 1970s.
What was that maniac drinking? Tastes like the Volga River at low tide.
This is episode 184, recorded March 1st, 2023.
Gruesome Magazine.
I am your host, Doc Rodden, and this podcast about horror films released between 1970 and 1979. Each episode, my co-host Jeff Mohr and I will tackle another classic, or not so classic, film from this wondrous, groovy, gory, and influential decade. Oh boy, we got a good one for you tonight. But first, let me introduce my crew, starting off with my co-host, Jeff Mohr. Jeff, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I had a bunch of lines thought up, but
they just blew away in the wind.
In the haste to batten down the hatches, they all went away. So.
Start writing this stuff down, Jeff.
Yeah, write down, man, write down. All right. Also joining us tonight is Bill Mulligan, writer, director, special effects guru, and all-around nice guy.
Thank you.
How you doing?
I'm doing all right. I went to a convention this weekend. The big news is that my first published novel, Realm, will have its, debut at RavenCon in Roanoke, Virginia on April like the 21st or so. So that's going to be its book launch. Yeah, saw the cover and it's real cool.
and people that follow Bill on Instagram and Facebook, it's actually a written book. It's not 500 pages of images that he's posting.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you can't color it in or anything. It's like a lot of words. Boy.
All right. Also joining us tonight.
Yeah.
Also joining us tonight is Chad Hunt, comic book artist and co-host of Decades of Horror, the classic era, and the 80s. How you doing, sir?
Sucky.
All right. With that, I guess we should introduce what movie we're doing. If you haven't figured it out from the title on, yes, we are doing Love at First Bite from 1979, the horror comedy that put George Hamilton in the role of Dracula. That worked out.
You say so.
It worked out for him. For him. Now, will it work out for us? How many decades later? I don't want to know. But
a lot of decades.
Oh, man. So let's start off things. I guess we have the card to do, but then what we'll do is get into what our first reactions are, and then we'll discuss things and then wrap things up. And then, do we have feedback tonight?
We have a ton of feedback, so we'll see if we have time for it or not.
Excellent. And then, of course, stick around to find out what we're going to be doing next week. Or next episode, at least. Wish if it was weekly, man, we'd be sweating. All right. Love at First Bite, 1979. Are you guys excited about this? We've been talking about this one. Oh, crap. All right. Love at First Bite, 1979, directed by Stan Dragoti, written by Robert Kaufman and Mark Gindes, whatever. The cast includes George Hamilton, Susan St. James, Richard Benjamin, Dick Shawn, and Artie Johnson. That's a cast. That's a great cast. Production company is AIP and Melvin Simon Productions. Filming location is New York City, New York, and Los Angeles, California. Release date was April 13th, 1979 in New York City, and then April 27th throughout the rest of the U.S. The budget was $3 million, but the box office was almost $44 million in the U.S. and Canada. That's actually really good, and put it in as the most profitable independent film for some time. It's also known as Dracula Sucks, which was the working title. It even has a reference to that in the movie. Good thing they didn't go with it. Why, Bill?
Because there's a porn movie that used that title, and it's
which makes more sense.
It makes a lot more sense.
The synopsis: the Count, ejected from his ancestral home by the communist regime. That's interesting. Searches for the current incarnation of his true love, currently living in New York City. The Count finds it difficult to adjust to life in the Big Apple in the late 1970s, but true love triumphs in the end.
New York City.
New York City.
Get a rope.
All right, let's find out when we first saw this. Now, I picked it. Should I go first?
Yeah, go first.
Yeah, defend yourself.
Defend myself. Okay. Here's the funny thing. I saw this back in April 1979, maybe May. The family and the family took me. I don't want to tell you how old I was. I was a kid. But we went to the drive-in and saw it. And I remember hating it. And I've never seen it since. But I've always wanted to go back to it. But I was not a happy camper watching this movie with my folks at the drive-in. So I watched it again this past few days, and you guys are going to hate me, but I kind of love this movie. It's not great by any stretch of the imagination. It's corny, but I also found it a little charming. And I think that Hamilton makes a great Dracula, and I was really enjoying Renfield. And I don't know, man. There's what was I going to say? Richard Benjamin is
wasted here.
I thought
he was great.
He is good here. He's actually much better here than I remember him being. But for me, he's always been a tough cookie to take. I haven't always enjoyed his stuff. Now, Westworld. We'll get to it. There's some films that I really love that he's in, but not necessarily because he's in them. Dick Shawn's in it, who I love from other things, but he's wasted too. And then we have a lot of familiar faces in small little bit roles, and they're a lot of fun too. It's corny. There are a lot of bite jokes and stuff, but I don't. In the end, I was sitting here going, "Why am I liking this?" I hated this. X amount of years ago. I'm not going to say how many years ago. You know how many years ago. But oh my gosh. So you guys can throw me to the wolves over that, but
and so we shall.
So we'll start with you there, Bill Mulligan. When did you first see Love at First Sight?
I'm one of the people that brought this thing almost $44 million. I saw it when it came out. And it didn't bother me that much. Okay, so here's the thing. Watching this movie, there is a certain charm to it in that it takes me back to an interesting time in comedy. Saturday Night Live
it's also dated, right? It's very dated.
Oh God, it's so dated. Oh, yikes in some cases. But comedy used to be very much like the Carol Burnett show and Laughing.
Yeah, that's a good way.
Wackety Schmackety Doo, Sonny and Cher show. I love those shows. I love those variety shows. And the humor was kind of corny. It got very slightly risque, but definitely pulled back at the brink. And then Saturday Night Live came out. And Saturday Night Live blew up comedy. Overnight, things like, the shows that I watched on TV, the repeats, the Petticoat Junctions and everything else just seemed incredibly old. I can only compare it to when you stopped reading Mad Magazine and you started reading National Lampoon.
Oh, there you go. That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Now, as I get older, I go back and I realize actually a lot of that Carol Burnett stuff was really killer funny. But the sad thing is, I think after Saturday Night Live took over and everything changed, they kept trying to do that old school kind of comedy, but smut it up a little. And it doesn't work. It's like you're having your grandma tell a dirty joke. It just doesn't feel right. All that said, there's some things I thought Hamilton actually was good. He showed some comedic timing you didn't really expect. And between this and Zorro the Gay Blade, which is very much in this kind of style of filmmaking, he kind of reinvented himself. I loved Susan St. James when she was on McMillan and Wife. I mean, she was so sexy, you actually believe Rock Hudson was attracted to her. She was great, but I hardly recognize her in this. Yeah, with
she changed her hair.
Yeah, and I know that's a superficial thing, but it didn't feel right. Artie Johnson from Laughing, he's a fun presence and everything. And I thought Richard Benjamin was actually pretty good in this. Some of the funny stuff, like when he shoots them, and it's like, oh no, that's for werewolves, and he's trying to play it off like no problem, everything's fine here as they're dragging him off. That was funny at all. Some of the racial humor is so dated that the makers of Birth of a Nation would be like, giving themselves a face palm here. Yeah, and I mean, it was. I remember people in the audience laughing themselves sick when the bat's flying through the house and everyone is acting like it's a big black flying chicken and trying to fry it up. And even as a kid, I'm pretty far away from woke, and I'm sure I was even further away back when I was, 19 years old. But I remember thinking, oh, this is kind of cringy, and boy, it's real cringy now. All the racial humor is just.
I was going to say that's not even the cringiest thing that happens.
Oh no, God! Just So yeah, if you watch this, you just have to go in with the right frame of mind and accept the fact that it was 1979 and movies and comedy were changing, and a lot of folks were having a hard time keeping up. And yet, it was the most successful indie movie, so it obviously was a hit with people.
Didn't like National Lampoon's Animal House come out like a year before this? Or
I would think
right?
so,
And
yeah. And
so there was
the
so
1-2
this
punch
weird transition from that.
Saturday Night Live,
that way.
Animal House. I mean, with the raunchy, more adult humor and everything is just, up to that point, comedies were like the Apple Dumpling Gang.
Yes, they were.
And that's the kind of stuff that people were laughing at, and it's amazing how very quickly it all changed. And go back and try to watch Laughing now, and the one thing you will not do is laugh.
Occasionally.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're throwing a lot of jokes at you. Now, some stuff still works, but
I think most of the laughs you get now is more nostalgia laughs than it is actual hee-haw laughs, right? Hee-haw.
Yeah.
There's another one.
So yeah, I mean, corny is definitely the word to use. You can't take it seriously. I'm not going to criticize it for plot problems or anything. It's like, as a vampire, as Dracula, he's good. As a vampire, he's terrible. A bunch of commies show up at his house and kick him out of the castle, and he pretty much just packs his bag and takes it. What the hell kind of vampire is this?
A plot motivated vampire.
Yeah, it's a plot motivated. Yeah, that's plot armor. They call that plot armor, sir.
Yeah, I guess.
So, what did you think of it when you watched it now? I mean, did it change your mind from how you?
No, it's pretty much exactly how I remember it. Except a little bit longer, and the stuff that I remember liking, like the Richard Benjamin stuff when he's trying to kill him and stuff, that was fine. But I really didn't like Susan Sarandon's character. Susan St. James' character. I didn't remember disliking her so much, but I didn't like her at all in this. And I really do like Susan St. James. So she didn't seem, everyone's fighting over her, but I'm like, yeah, go on, self-absorbed, just annoying. Of all the women in all the Dracula movies that he obsesses over, she just seems the most shallow.
That sounds like
So
a
it's
line.
the character,
That sounds
not
like a line.
Yeah. Not the actress. I like the actress. I wish she'd done more. She was so good in Macmillan and Wife. I mean, the whole Sunday mystery movie was just a fun thing to do. They had like 4 or 5 different rotating casts that they would keep going, and Columbo was one of them, and Macmillan and Wife was probably the second most popular one. And those were cool. Except when it was Heck Ramsey. Nobody liked Heck Ramsey.
Heck Ramsey. All right, let's find out what Chad thought. Chad, when did you first see this movie, and what was your opinion on it?
I feel like I saw this on like HBO or back in the day, a long time ago, and I'm sort of like Doc. I hated this movie, but I mean hated it. I did not care for my Dracula and stuff being made fun of and this kind of stuff at that age. So, but watching it this time, I found out that I still hate it.
Yeah. I still hate it.
And I still hate it. It's just, I never found it funny, and I never found it, the only saving grace of this film to me was Artie Johnson. Just that kind of physical comedy that he does in his speech affectations. I just always thought he was funny. So him as Renfield was just that was just a natural fit. And but I just didn't. I don't know. The only comedy horror movie. There's Abbott and Costello versus Frankenstein, and that worked because the
John
monsters were
Frankenstein? I'm sorry.
well, not in even in that case, but the monsters were played straight.
Yes.
You know, and
Yeah.
wouldn't it have been interesting if they'd have played Dracula straight in the midst of all these comedic characters in this film? I've always felt that way, and even though I love George Hamilton as Dracula, he looks like Dracula. He has the voice down of old Bela Lugosi, and
He does.
and
He
that,
does.
but
he does.
yeah. But I don't know. And then I looked at the length of this movie and it was 2 hours long. And I was like, holy cow. So I'm watching it. And then there's a dance number.
Mhm. Now, the dance number used to be awesome. I remember the dance number more than everything, but
it might have. But
it was the song. It was the song, though. And they took it
yeah,
out.
the song was cool. But I cannot stomach musical numbers. And I just can't. And so I found myself fast forwarding through it. But yeah, there's not much here that I liked, aside from Artie Johnson and a couple other little things too. It was cool seeing the little cameos, and Michael Pataki, and who we've covered here on a lot of things. And what was his name on
Sherman
Gomer
Hemsley?
Pyle?
Oh,
Sherman Hemsley, Boyle,
Ronnie Shell,
Corporal Boyle. Was he? That was
Isabel Sanford too.
Yeah, she was on there, and just a lot of cool little cameos that I thought were cool. Sherman Hemsley's part was funny, and
that whole
stuff
scene,
like
that
that.
scene worked out funny.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, but it was still, that's not who they were expecting to come out of that coffin, so that made it funny. But yeah, I don't think I will ever watch this movie again. And there's not one of you here that can make me do it.
Oh, we're gonna find a way. We're gonna find a way, sir. All right, fair enough. It was probably the tannest Dracula we've ever had.
It was dad joke Dracula.
Oh, it was.
Oh,
dad
yes.
joke Dracula. Oh my gosh,
Very
it was.
good.
Maybe
Yeah.
that's why it's appealing to me now.
Well-
Jeffrey Van Helsing, sir. When did you first see this, and what was your first impression?
I don't remember when I first saw this, but I've never been a huge George Hamilton fan, and in fact, I might have been sort of an anti-fan. But I don't remember liking it. In fact, I remember disliking it when it first came out, or the first time I saw it. But this time around, I was kind of having fun. So maybe it wasn't a dad joke thing. I don't know. But and what's weird, it's really interesting to me to see different, the humor or the comedy, what different people find funny, I guess. And I did not, I couldn't find a reason why I didn't like Artie Johnson, but I didn't. I don't know if it was just too much, or
It's pretty broad.
I'm such a Dwight Fry fan that I feel like it's blasphemy for somebody else to do that much. I don't know. Some of him was okay, but the other ones, Susan St. James was supposed to be playing kind of an airhead, and she did a really good job at it. She was just nonstop chatter and breaking it up. George Hamilton, I thought, was pretty good. The guy that really surprised me was Richard Benjamin, because I haven't liked him in the past. But I thought when he just goes nuts and does it, I kept thinking about Bill's thing. If you want the cops to come, never tell them there's a vampire, or never tell them there's a zombie or whatever it is. And it didn't matter how many times it happened. He's just screaming at the top of his lungs, telling everybody. I don't know. I had a good time with that. And I've loved Susan St. James since, even before Macmillan Wife, there was Name of the Game, which was a rotating series on Friday nights that had Gene Barry, Robert Stack, and Tony Franciosa. And she was the assistant, to these office guys on the top floor. And then also one I totally forgot about was Kate and Allie. I totally forgot
that's
about
right.
Yeah, that's
it. It was
later,
like 5 seasons of that.
Yeah.
With her and Jane Curtin. So anyway, yeah, I had a crush on her back in the Name of the Game times. And the weird thing is I remember her having a relationship with Stephen Stills, but I had a hell of a time finding anything about it. I mean, it doesn't mention it anywhere. And I finally found an article where they claim that she pulled him out of a funk in the late 70s, just before she got married to, who was it? Was it Dick Ebersol? But anyway, that's of interest only to me. So I actually enjoyed this. I was surprisingly enjoyed this and found myself laughing in parts, and I groaned in a lot of parts.
Oh,
I was disappointed in Dick Shawn. I don't know if they just didn't give him the part or what the deal was, but he's like one of the funniest guys in the world on.
Yeah.
It's a mad
Oh my
world.
God!
Oh, he's
Mama.
Like they pulled the reins in on him in this one or something.
He does that. I mean, the best scene with him is in the police station when we're introduced to him and the whole "I'm a psychiatrist" spiel.
Right.
Right.
And he's, oh, I feel good.
About that.
And then he starts talking about Dracula and vampires. He gets all pissed off.
Well, and you see that guy later. I mean, there was a lot of that stuff you find. You see the kid later pulling the tires off a car.
Well, then, I mean, because we see him earlier when he steals,
I told you.
he steals the TV out of the broken window.
Yes. I told you so. I told you. Richard Benjamin says maybe he needs therapy.
Maybe he needs therapy.
I don't know.
All right. So before we get into a discussion about this, Chad, you brought up that this was like in the top 10. I'm looking at a thing called the numbers, and it was number 11 for 1979 as far as how much money it made, which is, this is an independent film as opposed to, so that's a big deal. Here are some of the films. I just want to name off a couple movies that it made more money than.
Oh boy.
It made more money than Escape from Alcatraz.
Oh.
It made more money than Meatballs.
I can see that maybe.
Okay. The Electric Horseman, Manhattan, Starting Over, The In-Laws, all that jazz. The Main Event, The Black Hole, China Syndrome, and Justice for All, The Champ, Being There.
Holy cow!
I know.
The Black Hole.
I don't
cost a whole lot less money than the Black Hole.
Yeah, it did. But yeah, it made more money in all those films.
And yet, no sequel. Isn't that a little surprising? That
they were going to make the Love at Second Bite, but they never got around to it. So the biggest, the movie that made the most money in 1979 was Superman, which got released in late '78. Amityville Horror was second. Rocky II, Star Trek, Apocalypse Now, The Muppet Movie, The Jerk, Moonraker, Alien, and 10.
Bo Derek.
10 was number 10. So that's where else you're going to put it, right? But Bo Derek, that movie.
All of those better movies than Love at First Bite.
Yeah, but there is 2 horror films straight up in the top 10.
Yeah.
Now this is like I think you've gotten the gist that this is more of a comedy horror than a horror comedy. The only thing that makes it a horror film is because it has literal Dracula and vampires and turning into bats, but it is not any way like a horror comedy like you would think, like a Ghostbusters or something that actually has some scares in it as well. This has no scares whatsoever, except for maybe if you stretch the definition when he comes popping out of the coffin and at the funeral. But that's only, it's played 100% for laughs.
100%.
Now this did break out George Hamilton as a comedic actor. He was not known as a comedic actor before then, or at least not as much of a comedic actor, not this big of a comedic actor. So
it kind of reminds me of how like Airplane made Leslie Nielsen.
There you go,
comedic actor.
There you go. Which also had Chad Hunt, an interesting dance scene right in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chad, I was thinking about you. I'm thinking. I actually fast forwarded. So anyway.
Yeah, you should. All you guys should automatically just take it as truth that I'm going to fast forward through any musical numbers or dance scenes.
He watched Sweeney Todd in 11 minutes.
I have not watched Sweeney Todd for that reason.
Oh God bless!
It's a
We
good
are going to
movie.
have to hurt you. Do you at least watch the putting on the Ritz scene in Young Frankenstein?
Yeah, I do. I do watch that because.
Do you watch The Wizard of Oz, Chad?
Yeah, but I don't consider it like a horror movie.
Oh, you're talking about.
It's a hell of a lot scarier than.
Well, that's scary in this.
That's for sure.
Those damn monkeys, man.
Those monkeys.
Yeah. Any horror movie that has a dance number in it is no longer a horror movie.
Yeah.
There is one I challenge you with, and that's Anna versus Anna and the Apocalypse. But that's a different story. That's a different story altogether. All right, so let's get into some stuff here. Let's look at some of the posters, which that's a great poster.
Yeah.
Need
Black
some
and white,
colors.
which is interesting. It's
Well, I think. Well, this is probably the one they used for the newspaper. To be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
You can see that it has the tones for that, but here's some other versions of it. That's the DVD down below, right? And that,
actually, that's a pretty nice poster. The cover for the DVD is nicely painted.
I like the little heads coming out of the coffin. The one thing about it that we should go ahead and stop now and say is that we talked about the music, and that dance number that Chad dislikes is. Oh gosh, what is it? I already forgot what the song is.
I love the nightlife.
I love the nightlife. Yes, I love the boogies. What I had in my head, but that's the second line. Was a huge hit, and it originated out of this movie, or at least it was in this movie. And they did not have the license for it when they made the DVD, so they had to replace it. What's wrong?
Should have known. I'm just laughing because I'm thinking, if only they knew about Chad, they wouldn't have worried about the rights for that because he's
exactly.
Anyway.
I hated disco so much. I can't.
Me too.
I was punk and metal. That's all I was listening to.
I'm right there. I was
And,
punk, and that was about it. Yeah.
Disco disco was nowhere to be found in my
and then there were those times when like Blondie came out with Heart of Glass, and I was really torn because I love Blondie, but I hate disco. But I actually kind of liked Heart of Glass. It's like, you're tearing me apart, Lisa.
So I was into Kiss, and I was into ELO, and then in 1978, 79, they both had disco-y kind of songs.
Yeah.
Xanadu. Oh my God. And then of course, it's funny with Kiss. Their disco song is still the most downloaded Kiss song.
I was made for loving you.
I was made for loving you. What a shameful spot on the history of that one of my favorite bands ever.
Yeah.
You know what? I loved it at the time, and it really plays well in their concerts. So when they play it, they
do kind of metal it up a little bit. They do nowadays, and I can tolerate it a little bit more now than I could then.
Yeah, and that's when he goes flying across the, off the stage and onto the little platform that's on the other side of the.
Yeah,
there is something almost gloriously subversive about Kiss doing something as corporate-y, poppy as a disco song,
and it was a huge hit.
Oh yeah.
But Beth is still their biggest.
Yeah,
sure. Hit, which was a. I don't know why we're on Kiss, but Beth was a B-side.
Because if we don't talk about Kiss, we're going to be talking about Love at First Bite, and frankly, there's more passion. You see how everyone's faces lit up when we started talking about music
Kiss?
We love.
We got to do Kiss Mr. the Phantom at some point. Then we'll really.
Oh my God! I will. I
have to.
Absolutely. I've got so many stories to tell about that.
Tell me when you're done talking about Kiss.
One nice thing about it, because Beth was the B-side. Detroit Rock City was the A-side, and it flopped. And then when they started playing Beth, they reissued it and put Beth on the A side and Detroit Rock City on the B.
Yeah.
All right. So enough about that.
I love songs that end with a car crash.
And start with the whole thing, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There he is.
There he is. The one. Only.
Look, that's well shot. That looks actually legit. Scary.
Yeah.
Make Artie out of the back.
He works. He works because he works because he's playing, the.
Yeah, if you were to look at this picture and not know who Artie Johnson was,
you'd be fine.
You'd be fine with that Dracula and that rendition. But
it just helps that he nails the
Dwight Fry. Yeah,
the Dwight Fry.
Right.
He does it over and over again, and I love it every time. But anyway, so we're talking about. Yes, the tannest Dracula ever. How does Dracula the undead, who never gets sun, get tan? Which George Hamilton, it kind of comes.
He's dark complected.
Yeah, comes with.
Don't you remember QT? quick tan in a tan.
Oh, there you go. He sprays.
Oh, yeah.
You put it all over yourself and you turn sort of a shade of orange,
It'd be like Trump. Yeah.
fooling nobody. Yeah.
But it's a shame they didn't do a second one because he did make a fun Dracula.
Yeah, he did. He
Just
did.
needed
He
a better
definitely
script.
looked the part.
I mean, if he had a better script, can you imagine how wonderful the second one
Yeah.
would be?
Was that really the problem? They couldn't find a script to live up to the heights of Love at First Bite. I mean, it just amazes me. They spent $3 million. They made 44 million. I would have thought they'd just say, we don't need a script. We're just going to start shooting next week.
Yeah. Not everything would get sequels at this. Well, no, actually, at this point, sequels were big, right? Because of Godfather and even The Exorcist was getting sequels at this point. Jaws had Jaws 2 by this, so yeah, it is surprising they didn't go for a sequel.
I mean, Meatballs too. So.
Oh my God, you're right.
And they didn't even care if they none of the original people want to come back. We don't care. We're going to call it Meatballs 2. It's nothing.
Well, there you go. All right. There's just Susan St. James, who I think looks fantastic in this. The hair gag was funny. Are you ready to see what I really look like when she comes out of the room?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you couldn't even recognize her. I did not recognize her from the magazine cover that he.
No, I didn't recognize her, but when she was at the table waiting.
Right.
Or when the dog was licking her leg.
Yeah.
That I laughed at that. That made me laugh about the whole dog thing. I know that you'd like to be licked on the leg. The whole bit with her trying to pour the wine and smoke the doobie all at the same time, and I thought it was pretty funny. I don't know. It's just me.
They had a good chemistry.
I'm easy
together.
to please. They did. Yeah. They did. It wasn't super steamy, but it worked.
No.
Certainly was more than what she had with Richard Benjamin. But it does make him kind of out like a little bit of a creeper, doesn't it?
A little bit, yeah.
Dracula. Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we should move on. Richard Benjamin. Quark. Yeah, I guess we were looking at this and we're saying, "Oh, I liked Quark." I forgot about Quark. That TV show.
Yeah.
What a strange.
So did everybody else.
Yeah.
There was a time when they kept trying to make science fiction or horror TV shows, and for reasons no one could figure out, they would usually slap them on Friday when all the fans of those shows were out doing something. They never survived, and they would come and go so fast. And I thought Quark was quite funny. At least I remember thinking it was funny at the time. Now I might go back and watch it now, and it's like, ooh, I now appreciate Love at First Bite. But I remember liking Quark.
They tried to pass Richard Benjamin off as a heroic dude, and he's not. I don't like in Westworld. He was fine in that, but we all know that what's his face was the real hero.
Yul Brenner,
Yul Brenner was
and
James Brolin got
Brolin, too.
Yeah,
they had Brolin and so I just never bought him as the heroic type anyway. But
yeah, in Westworld, he was sort of the inept character that got dragged along by his cool buddy.
Yeah.
And then it's left alone to fight the.
And then the less said about Saturday the 14th, the better. It's the film that makes you appreciate Transylvania 6-5000.
Oh, not really.
But
it does make you appreciate this one more. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. Quark. Was Quark 2 seasons from 77 to 78? I guess. Maybe
how many?
One season?
That's usually one. How many episodes?
Yeah, I think it may have just been one season. I remember back in those days, the first thing I would do is we'd go through when the TV guide came, and no kids today will understand this. When the TV guide showed up at your house, man, that was a good time. You get yourself a highlighter and you start going through what movies are they going to be showing on Creature Features, what movies are going to be on Chiller Theater. Will any of those holy grails that I haven't seen yet, or that it's going to be Attack of the 50-Foot Woman again? But then also reading the insider stuff and finding, just the heartbreak when you find out your show's been canceled.
Mm-hmm.
That was
I was
punch
working,
to the gut.
The thing I remember him from first is Goodbye Columbus, which I was working at the theater when that came out.
Oh, nice.
Played at the theater where I worked. So whatever movie was playing, you saw like a dozen times. And it wasn't that good of a movie.
No, but it did establish him. And so he became the go-to kind of nervous Jewish guy.
Yeah.
And he was married to Paul Prentice.
Yeah.
Still married to Paul Prentice.
Sunshine Boys.
Yeah, they've been married together for a long time. And Paula Prentice,
Yep.
way to go, Richard Benjamin. She was lovely, and that's a long marriage too. That's a Hollywood marriage. It's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
So I always found him likable.
I never found him that funny, and I think it might have been because of this stupid film here.
Yeah.
Now
I think he's actually funny in this one. I've seen other ones.
I think he's funny now, but I did not in 1979. Now, Scavenger Hunt. He did a movie called Scavenger Hunt, which is probably not many people know about.
I remember that one.
But it's kind of like a Mad World remake,
yeah.
right? Except for
That's not the one with John Lovett, is it?
No, that's later. That's much later. That's much later. That's a different one. This one has Richard Mulligan, Roddy McDowall, Tony Randall, Willie Ames, Dirk Benedict, James Coco, Ruth Gordon, Scatman Crothers, Cloris Leachman, Cleavon Little, Robert Morley.
These are all
Vincent Price. Meatloaf is in it in small roles.
This is like all the people that were making Love American Style or The Love Boat that week, and they got together and made a movie. It's folks that you all know and you have affection for them, but the movies. Richard, the one thing about Richard Benjamin, I always felt in every role I ever saw him in, it was obvious he was acting. He's got that kind of broad, little old-fashioned style where he's obviously playing a character. This is not a method actor. You can see
him thinking instead of being.
Yeah. It's his shtick.
We might even call that wooden nowadays.
He's emoting. He's putting it out there. It's just it's kind of an old-fashioned thing, when the 60s and definitely by the time the 70s came along. You weren't supposed. It wasn't supposed to be so obvious that you were doing a skit, and everything seems kind of skit like. But that was an accepted style back then.
Mm-hmm.
It looks very dated now.
Yep. All right, let's Artie Johnson. Artie Johnson with a brief pair of co-stars there that look fantastic.
Oh.
They really stood out in this film.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, Artie was the break. Artie and Goldie Hawn were the breakout characters from Laugh-In, and I guess Lily Tomlin too.
You would think, right? Yeah, like one ringy dingy, two ringy ding.
And he definitely could play. He could play characters.
Goldie Hawn.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yes. He did funny voices and broad characters. That was just a comforting presence. I like seeing him show up in movies. I'm sure he's in the Apple Dumpling Gang. If I'm making the Apple Dumpling Gang, I'm putting Artie Shaw in there somewhere.
Johnson.
Artie Johnson. Artie Shaw. Man, I'm just all over the place. Susan Sarandon and Artie Shaw are in this movie. No,
that's awesome.
They're not anywhere near this movie.
Oh, man. But what did he? I mean, he did an episode of Night Gallery. That would be interesting to see. The Flip Side of Satan. Wow, what a great title!
I'll bet it's a comedy, though.
Yes, I bet it is.
A lot of voices.
Yeah.
Laugh-In from 67 to 71. Now, my family watched Laugh-In every weekend. I remember that.
Yeah, we did too.
Yep.
Coming out the windows, or
right. And some of those jokes are just, and it's funny. You're watching it now. It's like, ooh, this is some naughty stuff. Back in the day, it was like, this is some naughty stuff. And you're looking at it now, it's like, this is Nickelodeon.
They had all those recurring things like "Here Comes the Judge" was another one.
Right, they make no
sense. Yes.
If I showed an episode of Laugh-In to one of my classes now, they would be looking at me like, what? How strong were drugs in the 1970s that this is what passed for funny?
Pretty strong.
Pretty strong.
That's right.
Dated humor.
Yeah. So we got the flying chicken, and black people sure do get spooked by dead folks coming out of coffins. Yeah, it's like this is right out of the 1940s.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Serious step and fetch it stuff here.
Yeah, there's even a line about the 21st century and homosexuals. Oh my God, it's so bad. It's so bad.
Well, even Sherman Hemsley was hilarious, though.
Yeah,
yes.
He is.
Jumps through the window. He's great.
Yeah.
This was his first movie role.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
And he played a priest in his last movie role. He played a priest.
Yeah.
So this is before the Jeffersons.
Pastor. No, this is after Jefferson.
Oh, it is.
Just first movie role.
Movie role.
I mean, yeah, that's right, 1979. I mean, Jeffersons is one of those shows that you look back and watch, and they actually, I think, even more successfully than All in the Family, they could sometimes hit some serious topics, but they never forgot that there was some, this is a comedy.
Yeah.
And you got to get some laughs in there too. And I think that show actually is a little underrated.
It is. I think so too. It was very well written. And it was that and All in the Family were made as almost like a slap in the face to racism. It was showing how ignorant it was from the point of view of a guy like Archie Bunker, but everybody around him are always the ones that have to straighten him out and everything. Those were very well written shows.
And I think the Jeffersons actually was a trickier one because Archie's a buffoon. Archie is right about nothing. He is consistently wrong all the way through. He has a certain humanity to him and everything, and you understand how he got that way. But at no point are you ever supposed to think, Archie is someone to admire. But Jefferson, this is a guy who pulled himself up and became a successful businessman. He's got a lot of really positive qualities, but he's also someone who is hamstrung by his prejudices and everything. And the women basically have to talk him out of it. And you can see his son is going to be a much better man than he is. There was a lot of nuance to the character, but he was also capable of changing and growing. Yeah, it really is a good show.
It was on for 10 years.
Yeah.
From 75 to 85. And then he followed that up with Amen for another almost 10 years. Playing Deacon Ernest Fry.
He was kind of like Bob Newhart, that he would, get in a show, make a success of it, ring it out till, there was nothing left. And as soon as they canceled it, he'd go on to another one.
Yep. And he first played George Jefferson in All in the Family, obviously. But in 1973.
Wow.
Yeah.
1973 he played him. So that's kind of crazy to think about.
Some of those exchanges between him and Archie Bunker were just hilarious. Yeah, funny.
Absolutely. Is there anybody else in the cast? I mean, there's so many people that we should mention in these small roles. Like you wanted to talk about Ronnie Shell, right, Chad? Because he was.
I think he was in there in the elevator
that's it, right?
yeah, and along with Michael Pataki and a couple other. But I think Ronnie Shell played Corporal Boyle on the Gomer Pyle show. Is that correct? Corporal Boyle. Or am I thinking of somebody else?
I don't remember. You're probably right. I know he was a comedian, I think, but he also was actor.
He's been in a lot of TV shows.
He played a character. Gomer Pyle played a character named Duke Slater.
That's it, Duke Slater.
Slater, and yeah.
And he was the voice of Jake in The Cat from Outer Space. So
there you go. He was in a TV series. It was a cartoon series, 73, called Goober and the Ghost Chasers. I have no idea.
Oh yeah, I remember Goober.
Played Gilly, whatever Gilly was. You remember that?
Yes. Oh, God.
He's got a lot of voices, and he's
he sure does.
138 credits, which is a working guy.
Yeah.
Yogi's Space Race, he was a voice. It doesn't say which one he was, but
the strongest man in the world.
Oh no, he did. Remember Battle of the Planets?
Yes.
I did. He was the U.S. voice for Jason. I don't know who Jason was, but was he? He wasn't Captain Caveman, was he?
Oh wow.
Because he was in Captain Caveman and the Teen Angels.
I think he's still alive.
I think he just did probably voices on there. I can't remember who Captain Caveman was, but it wasn't him. I remember the guy's face.
Yeah, he was in a ton of series, but mostly just a few episodes, except for some of these. I think they're animated ones.
A lot of the
92 episodes of Gomer Pyle.
Yeah,
and he hit it big early, and then. I'm not saying there's not anything wrong with what he did, but he did a lot of 1 and 2 episode things.
Wasn't really into the genre.
Fun actor. I saw their names on the credits, him and Pataki, and I'm watching for him, and the elevator scene's going on for a bit, and then I just realized, oh shit, that's Michael Pataki standing
Well,
there. That's it.
Now, Michael Pataki, of course, did make some genre stuff. Do we want to talk about him real quick?
He did.
I mean, he's just a cameo in here. He literally is in that one scene, right?
Right. Well, Graver the Vampire, obviously.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I guess his genre stuff is few and far between, but
Captain Barbera on the old Spider-Man TV show, live action TV show.
Oh, that's right.
oh no, he was. Oh my God, that's right, he was on the live action one. Oh my gosh.
The Bat People?
Oh, wow.
Dracula's dog, the Bat People. The Airport 77. We got to conclude the airport movies.
Some winners there.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's fun to see him pull all these guys in. So I don't know where they came from. The
Return of Count Yorga. Sorry. Dromeda Strain.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some good stuff there.
He was in Star Trek. He was Korax in Trouble with Tribbles.
Yeah.
Don't we have like a little
Yeah.
thing about that, right? Now, this other person I thought you would know more about, Jeff, and that's David Ketchum.
Didn't notice him.
He plays the inspector guy, or not the inspector. I guess that's not the wrong word for it, but the guy that checks him out at the airport.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He looked familiar, but I didn't think of it. I didn't look it up. Let's put it.
Yeah, he's just a character actor that you probably saw everywhere. He was Agent 13 and Get Smart. I think might be.
Yeah.
Most things.
Okay, that's where I was trying to remember him from.
Yeah.
I'm watching this guy and thinking, well, he looks familiar. But I'll tell you what, try to look somebody up in the list of actors in this movie. I mean, it's a friggin' long list.
What's this Camp Run-Amok? That sounds familiar, but before my time. Does anybody know Camp Run-Amok?
I seem to remember that name.
He was a character called Spiffy on that, and he was in the Munsters. He was on an episode of Munsters. Anyway, we should move on, shouldn't we?
Yeah. Anyway.
So you were saying something about looking up the cast members for this was hard. So.
Well, the number one is the director, which apparently he was arrested for cocaine possession while going to Cannes to plug this film.
He did. He was, yes.
Yeah, things happen.
But he only has 7 credits as a director, but they're all like Dirty Little Billy was the first one. That's the one with Michael Pollard as Billy the Kid. Michael J. Pollard. And then Love at First Bite. Then Mr. Mom.
Mr. Mom. That's a huge hit.
The Man with One Red Shoe.
Misfired.
And Necessary Roughness.
Misfired.
All movies that did pretty good, so I don't know. It's weird that he only did 7 of them.
And he wrote 2 of them.
Well, yeah, and the writer also. You mentioned Love American Style, Bill. The writer Robert Kaufman was nominated for an Oscar for Divorce American Style in 1967. But he also had an uncredited role in writing for Tootsie.
Oh wow!
And what was Happy Hooker Goes to Washington.
Oh, okay, well, that makes a lot more sense.
There you go. There's a sign of the times there.
And
I think that might be the one with Adam West.
Dr. Goldfoot.
Oh no,
Dr. Goldfart. Dr. Goldfoot.
Dr. Goldfart.
I was going to say Goldfarb. I don't know where I got that from. Dr. Goldfoot and the Bikini Machine, and Dr. Goldfoot and the Girl Bombs.
So he did something I never did, which is write a movie for Mario Bava. Just happens to be the worst Mario Bava movie ever. But
I'm
Dr.
sorry.
Dr. Goldfart.
We gotta.
Please don't give them any ideas.
Oh my god.
It's interesting to me, It's like somebody somewhere thought these guys, at some point had some success in comedy, or at least got jobs doing it. The director in particular.
Maybe it's not as easy to make a vampire comedy as you think, because then Leslie Nielsen did Mel Brooks' Dracula Dead and Loving It, and it's not anyone's favorite Mel Brooks movie either.
And there was a number of vampire comedies even in the 70s. I think wasn't Ringo Starr in one?
Yes,
and
it's terrible.
They all are.
They are.
David Niven, didn't he do one that was?
My God, Old Dracula.
Old Dracula, that's bad too.
So if you think that maybe the racial humor in this one is a little cringy, this is Shaft compared to Old Dracula. Yeah. I mean, David. I don't even want to go into it. Just if you want to shake your head and palm your face, get a hold of Old Dracula and prepare to be amazed. Blackface is the least offensive part of that movie.
There's also that spot where Artie Johnson walks into that office and the receptionist says, "Didn't I see him on Fantasy Island?"
Yeah.
I know. It's like, oh my gosh, really? That doesn't date it at all.
Wow.
There were in 1979. This is interesting. Little note. There were at least 4 Dracula movies. Dracula, we've done that one with the big one. Nosferatu, we did that. Love at First Bite, and there's a thing called Nocturna, and then Dracula Blues is cool. What the? I don't even. Do I know what that one is?
It's a softcore sex film.
Is it?
Yeah.
With Dracula in it, and then of course there's Salem's Lot came out that year. That's just a vampire movie and Thirst, but even that's probably not all of them, right?
When did Dracula Sucks actually come out? When did it come out?
The porn film came out the year before.
Oh,
that's why they changed the title.
Good move.
A good move. It was a good move on their part. Yes. Oh my God. Dick Shawn, we talked about him. He would later play Count Dracula. Did you guys know this? Did you guys remember that he played Count Dracula and Mr. and Mrs. Dracula?
No.
Oh.
No.
I think we talked about this before.
That's
I'm
a new
trying to
one on me.
why we did. Who played Mrs. Dracula?
I'm wondering that myself.
Well, now we've got to go find out.
We got to find out. Let's see.
Somebody look it up.
So this was a pilot that didn't quite make it.
Well, that makes sense.
Carol Lawrence and Paula Prentice. Oh, so it could have been either one of them. Let's see. Okay. Well, Paula Prentice, yeah.
I don't know why. I swear I remember that coming up sometime.
Oh, okay. So they had
In
2 pilots, and one of them, Carol Lawrence, played Sonia Dracula, and the other one, Paula Prentice, played Sonia Dracula, but Dick Shawn was Dracula in both of them.
It was. They did give us a small callback to previous movies. Like they talked about. Oh, and then there was that girl in 1931, Mina Harker. She wasn't the greatest, or something like that.
Yep.
Just throw a couple things in there.
They did. And did you see him? They mentioned this, and I watched for it, because it was in their notes. But he gives the middle finger when they about an hour into it, when he closes the door closes the coffin lid just before the sun rises. I was like, well, what's up with that? Who knows? All right, well, let's wrap this one up. We're running shy on time, and let's go ahead and I guess give our recommendation and pick a favorite scene. That should be fun. I guess I'll start. Eh? Okay. Recommending this film comes as a difficult proposal, because I don't think it's not a very good film, but there is a charm in a nostalgic way, because it is certainly of its time. It doesn't age out of 1979 at all. It's stuck it's stuck, cemented in that year. Even from the way New York City looks to the jokes to everything about it is just, it's, yeah. From how it is as a comedy to how it is as who's in it, the cast, everything. So if you're up for it, it's hard to find. I think it's on like archive.org. It's on you can find it on YouTube, and of course you can get the Blu-ray. Came out in 2015. If you can still find it.
Good luck with that.
Is it hard to find? It's hard to get. How many hundreds of dollars?
It's out of print. Yeah.
Wow.
I don't think it's cheap.
Yeah. So don't do that. But it's so I mean like I said, I had a good time, but it was all because of nostalgia. And I would what would be my favorite scene? That's kind of hard. I really liked the beginning of it. I thought they set this up really well, even with why is he getting evicted? That's so weird. But the whole scenery of it, the whole way he's playing the piano and he says children of the night, shut up. That actually so it was like out of the gate it's working, and then the more it goes it starts to fall apart. So I'm going to go with that. So Bill Mulligan, what about you?
I mean, I agree. It's you have to sort of love this sort of thing to really make it worth your while. As far as a favorite scene, this is such a lame joke, but it never fails to crack me up when she peeks her head out the door and she's got that stuff on her face that women put on their face, and he starts, oh my God, she's turned into a, and it's like, okay. I mean, that's just dad comedy writing 101, but it did make me laugh. So
it's kind of a standard, right? That's kind of it's a go-to. Excellent. Chad. Oh, this is going to hurt.
The end, when the end comes on, that's the best.
Well, I'm trying.
You can't recommend this, can you? Can't do
No, I can't. I can't. I really can't. It's another thing I didn't bring up before is it's too long. It didn't really need to go for 2 hours.
Yeah,
they could have condensed this in.
What am I missing here? Because it was like an hour and 35 minutes.
Was it? It was like an hour and 45.
Maybe it just felt like 2 hours.
Maybe it did. I don't know.
Yeah, the time it's an hour 36 on the time, but
it still could have felt. It just still
felt
long. Yeah, it did. And even though I liked some things in it, and I did laugh a couple of times at some things, it's just I can't. And I don't want to take away from anybody that does like this film, but for me, I just can't recommend it to somebody who's, hey, name a good horror comedy. I know 50 more before.
Oh, this is not going to be a number one.
Yeah, so I can't really recommend it.
This is an asterisk. Oh yeah. By the way, they did make it. If you like Young Frankenstein, here's another one. All right, fair enough, sir. Fair enough. All right, Jeffrey Van Helsing. What about you?
I am gonna. If you want some very light comedy, not a lot of heavy lifting. I actually kind of had a good time with it. It's just silly slapstick stuff. And I did want to say, I take it all back. There is a Blu-ray available. It's a, what do they call it? A double pack combined with Once Bitten.
Oh,
which
God.
wouldn't
that
be
one.
the one I'd buy it for either.
I remember hating walking out of the theater on that one.
So anyway, favorite scene, I liked Benjamin when he was trying to kill Dracula and didn't have the, he whips out the Star of David and then he shoots him. And after he shoots him, the cops come and grab him and he's screaming as they got no harm, no foul. He's alive. I don't know. I just, when he was going nuts like that, shouting stuff outside to the crowd, who was he talking to? Well, first it was the people on the elevator, and then it didn't matter. I liked those scenes. I was laughing.
Yes. Yeah, the whole confrontation that, trying to put each other to sleep.
Yeah.
It's so stupid. It was funny
great.
because of how stupid it was, except
the waiter walks up.
Yep. All right, well, there you go. That's we're running low on time, so we're going to speed along here. That was our review for Love at First Bite, 1979, the movie you probably thought we'd never cover, and we did. We got that out of the way. On to better things. All right. Let us know what you think if you get the chance to see it, or if you have a memory about it. I'd love to hear people's thoughts about this film. I imagine there's somebody out there that absolutely loves this movie. It's got to have been somebody's.
Sure.
Somebody, yeah. Everybody's movie is somebody's favorite movie, right?
That's
All right.
right.
We have some feedback, Jeff.
We do.
Let's do it.
We're going to have to parcel this up, though, I think.
I think so.
Let me start. Well, I'm going to skip to kind of the first one because it's a big, long one, and we read it in 80s.
Okay.
But I think we should read it on here, too, because it talks about all the decades of horrors. But then we got some recommendations from Mikey Z again.
Recommendations, yes.
He says, been a while since I offered suggestions, so here they come. 70s, Close Encounters of the Third.
I can do that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
The Black Hole.
The Black Hole, yes.
Legacy of Blood, not Andy Mulligan.
Oh, well, thank God.
I don't know the difference. Orca.
Orca. Wow.
Did we not do Orca?
No, we haven't
We have
done Orca
not.
yet.
Oh, okay.
Vampiros Lesbos.
That's just Franco.
And
one of his better
he
ones.
said the second Franco, and then he says, now thank me for not putting the Swarm on the list.
Well, that's just putting the Swarm on the list.
That's putting Swarm on the list. Oh man.
And
I-
there-
Fooling anybody.
yeah,
Mikey.
Legacy of not Legacy of Blood. Well, it's called the Legacy. Is he talking about the Legacy from 78? No, 1971 Legacy.
1971, not 78.
That question
Yeah.
mark there. So,
Yeah. Because I was thinking the Legacy, but the Legacy is.
there's one called Blood Legacy. It's got
Okay.
John Carradine and
And so then we've got a new listener, Jeff Chapman, or at least a new commenter, I think. Don't remember him before. And he does a real nice comment on the episodes 160, 161, the top 10 horror films of the 70s.
Oh, when we did the
retro episode that we did a year ago. He says, thank you so much for your list. I've always been tempted to do a horror podcast myself, being a big horror movie fan. There's a few on here I hadn't seen already. I checked Frogs, the Car, and Count Yorga. Count Yorga's scene with the cat and van was creepy. Laugh out loud. These are kind of people. He laughs.
Yeah.
Funny how Santos wasn't on board with all of Doc's films.
That was
straight after pulling out some of the worst but doable films of that era.
Yeah.
Awesome work, guys. Loved every second of part 1 and part 2 and thought the choices were awesome. Here's my list.
Oh, nice.
All right.
For you guys and the listeners, also skipping super big films. So for 1970, I Drink Your Blood.
Good choice.
Which we did, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did we do I Drink Your Blood or I Eat Your Flesh?
I drink your blood. I eat your flesh. Sucks.
I think we did I Drink Your Blood. But anyway, 1971, Mephisto Waltz. We haven't done that one.
That's a weird one. That's the dog
That's
one. Right?
Alan
The
Alda.
dog head. Yeah.
Yes.
Alan Alda.
Alan Alda, yeah.
Yeah.
1972, Tombs of the Blind Dead.
We
Good
did that
choice.
That's been done.
Oh my God, that's a great movie.
73, Warlock Moon.
Not familiar with that one.
More fodder. 1974, Black Christmas.
Excellent.
Yes.
1975, Deep Red.
Yes.
Excellent.
Both of those we did.
1976, Eaten Alive.
We've done that.
We
My
did
name
do
is
that one.
Buck,
Yeah.
and I like the clown.
What?
1977, Tentacles.
Tentacles.
Oh, it's
My wife and I
awful.
like it better than The Car and Jaws.
Tentacles.
Better than Jaws?
Better than
Bold
Jaws?
statement, my friend.
That is.
Somewhere he said, did I miss that out? Huh. I swear he said something about watching Manitou too.
He did. There was a line you skipped.
Yeah, you were
Okay.
watching that too. Yeah.
I'm going to watch the Manitou tonight. You guys did an awesome job. Yeah, I did skip that. Let's see. Where was I? Tentacles, 1978. I Spit on Your Grave.
Ooh,
That's a rough one.
it
It
is.
is. And 1979, Phantasm.
Good choice there. It's all
So I think there's, 2 or 3 on here we haven't done.
I mean, I
Or
feel
like
like at some point we
Moon.
do have to do I Spit on Your Grave. It's not a pleasant film or one that I
Right.
particularly enjoy, but it is pretty important. Even if it's
And
just to say how much we hate it.
then he also comments on 178, Creature from Black Lake. Jeff Chapman says, probably the best Bigfoot movie ever.
It was good.
It's
It was
faint
good.
praise, but it's definitely up there.
And then a couple for episode 182, The Ghoul. And our friend Alistair Hughes from New Zealand says, wonderful personal reminiscences about the Cush, Bill. You brought a tear to my eye.
He was a great guy.
Yeah,
Al cries easily, though.
Ha!
He's
That's uncalled for.
Al's my buddy. I got
that was a dig at Bill, not at
What?
Al, I think.
Well, do we know what
Went right over my head, so yeah.
And then Mikey Z again says, I think I saw this ages ago. I remember the luscious Veronica Carlson and her end or demise in this film.
All right. Let's see what you did
Oh,
there.
Mikey. Basically, Lesser Hammer without the hammer banner attached. The Legend of Werewolf is my favorite Tyburn production, on par with Curse of the Werewolf. That'd be a stretch. I'll have to check that out. Always good to hear how beloved Mr. Cushing was to those in and out of the industry.
Yes,
True.
yes.
So
All
thanks,
right.
guys. Thank Jeff
Yes,
Chapman.
yes,
thanks
thank
so
you.
much. Yes, and feel free to send us more
And Al?
recommendations. Yes.
We love you, Al. And it was, I thought it was cool. And Bill, it was a heartfelt story about Cushing.
What was the story?
You talked about meeting him at a convention.
Oh yeah,
Angora, yeah.
Sure. Oh yeah, he was such a sweet guy. Yeah.
What's our next film for a couple weeks?
Death Race 2000.
There's one I haven't seen in a while.
Yeah, I haven't seen that in a long time.
1975.
Isn't that the name of the character that drives Frankenstein?
Frankenstein.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I think, no, I'm keeping my mouth shut. I always say things I haven't looked up. And then when I'm wrong, I feel bad. So, but I'm looking forward to it. I liked it a lot. I actually went to that in the theaters because I was a Carradine fan after Kung Fu.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Sure. Yeah. Okay. We'll talk about when we get there.
Yes,
what an amazing show that was, and it's got Mary Warrenoff in it too. Rower.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, is it Sylvester Stallone?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, that's who I was.
So there's definitely going to be some fun talking about that one. That's
and it's on Tubi and a couple other
nice
subscription or free with ads services. So.
Well, it's time to wrap this one up, Chad.
I don't think there's any dancing or singing in it, Chad.
No, there might be. There might be.
Better not be.
There might be. Well, we'll insert one just in case. Jeff, Bill, Chad, thank you for joining me. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks,
well,
Doc.
thank you.
Thank you.
I was really bummed when you picked this, but I had a good time watching.
Oh, you were bummed? No.
I was like, love it for George.
We always
Hamilton.
had a good time, except for Fury
It was
of
fun.
the Werewolf.
It was fun.
We just
even then.
Yeah.
Or we just covered on 80s. Oh, I wasn't on the episode, but Dracula, the Vampire's Kiss with Nick Nolte.
Oh wow.
Nick Cage.
Nick Cage.
Nick
I'm
Nolte
sorry.
would have been awesome.
What are you doing, me now?
or me.
Yeah. Well, he would have been better in it than Nick Cage. I hated him in that movie.
Oh,
but
but
anyway.
he's famous for that one. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's get out of here. Let's take
Gotta go, folks.
Good night, guys.
Night, everybody.
Gruesome Magazine.